I waited too long to tell her I loved her. She moved away, got engaged, came back heartbroken, and then asked me if I was finally ready to fight for us, or if I was going to lose her all over again. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to fall in love with someone I wasn't supposed to. It started 2 years ago, when I accepted a new job in Chicago after my divorce. I wasn't looking for love. Honestly, I was just trying to survive. My marriage had ended after 8 years, and by the time I packed my last box, I had convinced myself that relationships simply weren't worth the risk anymore. The company assigned me to a small project team. There were only 5 of us, and that's where I met Emily. She wasn't the loudest person in the room. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, but every morning she'd walk in carrying the biggest coffee imaginable, smile at everyone, and somehow make the office feel less exhausting. At first we barely spoke. A quick, good morning, a joke about the weather, complaints about deadlines, nothing more. But over the following months we started eating lunch together. It wasn't planned. Somehow we'd both end up in the break room at the same time almost every day. She told me about growing up in a small town in Wisconsin. I told her how I had wasted years trying to keep a marriage alive that had already ended emotionally. She listened, really listened, not the fake kind, where people wait for their turn to talk. She remembered little things. My favorite pizza place, the name of my dog, the fact that I hated thunderstorms because one destroyed my childhood home. No one had paid attention to details like that in years. One Friday evening our boss announced we'd have to spend the weekend preparing a presentation for a major client. Everyone complained. Emily laughed. Well, at least they'll pay for dinner. That Saturday became the first time we spent an entire day together outside normal work hours. We worked, ordered Chinese food, argued about PowerPoint animations, listened to old rock music while fixing spreadsheets. Around midnight, after finally finishing everything, we walked outside. It had started snowing. The city was almost silent. She looked up at the sky and smiled like she'd completely forgotten about work. "This is my favorite weather," she said. I looked at her, and for the first time since my divorce, I realized I was genuinely happy. That scared me more than anything, because happiness has a way of making you believe you can lose it. So I decided not to tell her how I felt. I convinced myself staying friends was safer. I had no idea that one conversation, just a few weeks later, would change everything. That conversation happened on a rainy Tuesday. We had just wrapped up another long day at the office when Emily asked if I wanted to grab coffee before heading home. It wasn't unusual. We'd done it a dozen times before, but something about the way she asked made me nervous. We found a quiet cafe a few blocks away. The place was nearly empty, and the rain tapped softly against the windows. For a while, we talked about work, movies, and weekend plans. Then she suddenly went quiet. "I got some news," she said. I smiled. "Good news." She hesitated. "I've been offered a promotion." "Emily, that's amazing." "It is," she replied, staring into her coffee. "But there's a catch." I waited. "The position is in Seattle." It felt like the room got colder. Seattle was over 2,000 miles away. She tried to laugh. "I haven't accepted it yet." I nodded, pretending it didn't bother me. "You'd be great there." She looked disappointed by my answer. "I thought you'd try to convince me to stay." I forced a smile. "I'd never ask you to give up your dream because of me." The truth was, I wanted to. I wanted to tell her that every morning started with hoping she'd walk through the office door. That hearing her laugh could completely change my mood. That somewhere along the way, she had become the best part of my life. But fear won again. A week later, she accepted the promotion. Everyone in the office congratulated her. I did too, even though every word felt like a lie. Over the next month we spent even more time together, almost as if both of us knew a countdown had begun. We explored restaurants around the city, walked along the Chicago River after work, watched terrible horror movies just to laugh at how bad they were. Every goodbye became a little harder. Then came her farewell party. The entire office showed up. People gave speeches. There was cake. Someone made an embarrassing slideshow filled with old office photos. Everyone was smiling, except me. Near the end of the evening, Emily asked if we could step outside. The streets were quiet. The summer air was warm. "I need to ask you something," she said. "Anything?" She took a deep breath. "Have you ever felt like you were walking away from someone before they even knew how important they were to you?" My heart was racing. I knew exactly what she meant. This was the moment I had imagined 100 times. One sentence could change everything. I opened my mouth. But before I could answer, her phone rang. She looked at the screen. "I'm sorry. It's my mom." She stepped away to answer. When she came back, her smile was gone. "My dad collapsed," she whispered. "I have to leave right now." Without thinking, I grabbed my keys. "I'm driving." Neither of us said another word as we rushed through the empty streets. I had no idea that the next 48 hours would change not only her life, but mine as well. The drive to the hospital felt endless. Neither of us spoke much. Emily kept staring out the window, her hands trembling as she held her phone. Every few minutes it buzzed with another message from her mother, but there were no real updates. I wanted to tell her everything would be okay. Instead, I reached over for a second and squeezed her hand. She didn't pull away. When we arrived, doctors were already treating her father. Emily disappeared through the emergency room doors while I stayed in the waiting area. Hours passed. Coffee turned cold. The television in the corner played silently. Families came and went. Finally, sometime after 3 in the morning, Emily walked toward me with tears in her eyes. "He made it," she whispered. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "He had a heart attack, but the doctors say we got him here in time." Without saying a word, she wrapped her arms around me. It wasn't a friendly hug. It was the kind of hug people give when they're terrified of falling apart. "I don't know what I would have done without you," she said quietly. For the first time, I almost told her how I felt. Almost. The following days were a blur. Emily stayed with her parents while her father recovered. I drove back to Chicago alone. The office felt strangely empty. Her desk was still there. Her favorite coffee mug sat beside the monitor. Even the small cactus she'd somehow managed to keep alive was waiting by the window. Everything reminded me of her. A week later, she returned to pack the last of her things before moving to Seattle. Most of our coworkers had already gone home. It was just the two of us. She folded sweaters into a cardboard box and laughed softly. "I can't believe this is actually happening." "Yeah," I answered. She looked around the office one last time. "You know what I'll miss the most?" I smiled. "The coffee." She laughed. "No. The endless meetings." "Worse." I shrugged. "You." The room fell silent. I wasn't sure I'd heard her correctly. She stepped closer. "I've been trying to figure you out for months." "What do you mean?" "You always looked at me like you wanted to say something." I couldn't deny it anymore. She already knew. I was scared, I admitted. "Of what?" "Losing another person I cared about." She lowered her eyes. "You never gave me the chance to choose." Those words hit harder than anything I'd ever heard. She wasn't angry. She sounded disappointed. A few minutes later, her taxi arrived. I carried her last box downstairs. She opened the car door, then stopped. "If things were different." She didn't finish the sentence. Instead, she smiled sadly, climbed into the taxi, and disappeared into the evening traffic. I stood there long after the car was gone. I had no idea that 3 months later, a single unexpected text message would give us one last chance, or break my heart for good. 3 months passed. I told myself I was moving on. I deleted our old messages twice, downloaded dating apps, even agreed to a couple of awkward dinners with women my friends insisted were perfect for me. None of it worked. Every conversation felt forced. Every smile reminded me of someone else. Work became the only thing keeping my mind occupied. I started staying late, volunteering for projects no one wanted, convincing myself that being busy was the same as being happy. It wasn't. Then, on a Thursday night, just as I was about to leave the office, my phone buzzed. Emily. For a second, I thought I was imagining it. Her message was simple. "Hey, I know it's been a while. I was wondering if we could talk. If you're free." I stared at the screen for almost 5 minutes before replying. "Of course." "Is everything okay?" The typing bubble appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, another message came through. "Not really." She asked if we could video call. The moment her face appeared on my screen, I knew something was wrong. She looked exhausted. The bright smile I remembered had faded. Dark circles framed her eyes, and she kept twisting the sleeve of her sweater like she was trying to hide how nervous she was. "You don't look okay," I said quietly. She laughed, but there was no happiness in it. "I've had better weeks." "What happened?" She looked away from the camera. "I never told you why I accepted the promotion. I thought it was your dream job." "It was. But that wasn't the whole story." She took a deep breath. "My fiancé lived in Seattle." For a moment, I couldn't process what she'd just said. Fiancé. The word echoed in my head. I felt like all the air had been pulled from the room. "You were engaged." She nodded slowly. "We'd been together for 4 years." I didn't know what hurt more. The fact that she'd never mentioned him, or the realization that I'd fallen in love with someone who already belonged to someone else. "I should've told you," she whispered. "I wanted to so many times." "Why didn't you?" "Because somewhere along the way everything got complicated." She wiped a tear from her cheek. "When I moved here, I thought we'd finally build the life we'd planned." She paused. "But after a month, I found out he'd been cheating on me for almost a year." I didn't know what to say. She wasn't asking for pity. She was simply exhausted. "I ended it," she continued. "I packed my things and moved into a tiny apartment." There was silence between us. Then she looked straight into the camera. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "When I left Chicago, Were you ever going to tell me the truth? I froze. For months I'd imagined hearing that question. Now that it had finally come, I wasn't sure whether telling the truth would heal us, or destroy the last chance we had. I looked at her for what felt like forever. There was no point pretending anymore. Yes, I finally said, I loved you. The words hung between us. I loved you before you left Chicago. I loved you the night we worked until midnight. I loved you when we walked through the snow. And I still haven't figured out how to stop. Emily closed her eyes. A tear rolled down her cheek. I was hoping you'd say that, she whispered, but I was also afraid you would. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Finally, she smiled through the tears. You know what hurts the most? What? I fell in love with you too. My heart nearly stopped. She laughed softly. Isn't life cruel? To people waiting for the other person to say something until it was almost too late. We talked for hours that night. About everything we'd never said. About the missed opportunities. About the fears that had kept us apart. When the call finally ended, the sun was beginning to rise. Before hanging up, Emily surprised me. I'm flying to Chicago next weekend. You are? I need to see my parents anyway. She smiled. And I'd like to see you. For the first time in months, I felt hope. The entire week crawled by. I cleaned my apartment twice, bought new clothes, even asked my barber to fix the haircut I'd been ignoring for weeks. When Saturday finally arrived, I reached the airport almost an hour early. Every time the automatic doors opened, my heart raced. Then I saw her. She looked exactly the way I remembered, maybe even more beautiful. She spotted me immediately. Without hesitation, she walked straight toward me. Then she wrapped her arms around me. This time, neither of us wanted to let go. I missed you, she whispered. I missed you too. We spent the entire day together. We walked along the river, visited our favorite coffee shop, laughed about old office memories. For a few hours, it felt like we'd never been apart. As the sun began to set, we found ourselves back in the small park, where we'd once talked after work. Emily stopped walking. There's something I need to tell you. Her smile disappeared. My ex-fiancé called yesterday. I felt my stomach tighten. He said he made the biggest mistake of his life. She looked down at the ground. He wants me back. The words hit me like a punch. I told him I needed time to think. She looked into my eyes. I didn't come to Chicago because of him. I came because of you. She took one step closer. But before I decide what my future looks like, I need to know something. She reached for my hand. If I stay, are you willing to fight for us, this time? For the first time in my life, fear wasn't stronger than love. I knew exactly what my answer was. But neither of us realized that someone standing across the street had been watching us the entire time. And what happened next would change everything. I looked at Emily without saying a word. For months, I'd replayed every mistake in my head, wondering what I could have done differently. I had spent countless nights wishing for one more chance. Now it was standing right in front of me. I took both of her hands. I'm done letting fear make my decisions. She searched my face, almost as if she was waiting for me to change my mind. I love you, I said. Not because everything is perfect. Not because life suddenly became easy. I love you because every version of my future that makes sense has you in it. Tears filled her eyes. So yes, I continued. If you stay, I'll fight for us, every single day. Before she could answer, a voice called her name. We turned around. It was her ex-fiancé. He slowly walked toward us. I figured you'd be here, he said. Emily took a step closer to me. He looked at both of us before speaking again. I know I don't deserve another chance, he admitted. I hurt you, I lied to you, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then he looked directly at me. Take care of her. Emily's eyes widened. That's it, she asked. He gave a sad smile. For the first time in a long time, I'm trying to do the right thing. He turned around and walked away without looking back. We watched until he disappeared into the evening crowd. Emily let out a long breath. I thought that conversation would go very differently. So did I. She laughed, the kind of laugh I hadn't heard since our days in Chicago. A few weeks later, she returned to Seattle, not to rebuild her old life, but to pack it up. She resigned from her job, ended the lease on her apartment, and came back to Chicago. This time, she wasn't saying goodbye. She was coming home. Starting over wasn't easy. We argued sometimes. We had bad days. Healing from old wounds took time. But we made one promise to each other. No more silence. No more hiding behind fear. If something mattered, we'd say it. A year later, I took Emily back to the same place, where we'd watched film. The city looked just as beautiful as it had that night. She smiled. I had a feeling this place meant something. It does. I got down on one knee. She covered her mouth with both hands. Emily, I wasted enough time pretending I wasn't in love with you. I don't want to waste another day. Will you marry me? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she laughed through her tears, pulled me to my feet, and kissed me. Only after we finally caught our breath did she whisper the one word I'd been hoping to hear. Yes. If I'd spoken just a little sooner, maybe our story would have been easier. But maybe the journey was exactly what taught us never to let fear speak louder than our hearts again. So now I'm curious. What would you have done if you were in my place? Would you have told the truth from the beginning? Or would fear have kept you silent too? Let me know in the comments.